Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities via a number of different modalities. This show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group of like minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we would love to have you join us. We can be found at liveauthentically.today/FB. I'm super pumped that I recently released my debut book, SOAR, SOAR. It's on Amazon, and it's a spiritual experiential journey through a transformative life event and shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. I am super excited that on today's show with me, I have Amanda Brinkman. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. And I love that description of SOAR. I'm gonna have to check it out. I love that. Partnered with the universe. Even that phrase, you
Thank
have
you.
had me on. So I want to check
Thank
it
you
out.
very much. Well, I would be happy to send you a copy, so we'll make that happen after the show. But super excited. A little background about Amanda. She has an incredibly impressive resume. Chief Brand Officer at Deluxe, is a revolutionary brand marketer, passionate speaker, and the creator, producer, and co-host of the acclaimed Small Business Revolution Main Street series on Hulu and smallbusinessrevolution.org. So I'm super excited to talk to you about all of your accomplishments today, particularly intrigued by this whole branding process. So I can't wait to dive into that, kind of start super high level and general, and then dive into that and talk about it sort of from an energy perspective. How, brands obviously all have a different energy, and how we go about creating that in our minds and actually getting that out into the world. So I'm super intrigued by that and would love to dive in more. But before we do that, I always start my shows off with the same question. And that question is, drum roll, are you ready?
I am.
What does it mean to you to live authentically every day?
It means being true to where your unique skill set is and not trying to create some other version of what you think you should be doing.
Mhm.
So what I mean by that is I think everybody is on this planet to make each other's lives better in whatever way better means to that other person. But I think usually when we pursue goodness, we all think of the same kind of vocations. I must run a nonprofit or do all volunteer work or, become, join the Peace Corps. And I think become an activist. But I really think we are all in a position to make the world better based on our unique skill set with what we have been gifted to, because you need people in marketing and in finance and in HR and on the ground. We need everyone working together to
Yeah.
create movement, to create change, to really address utilizing resources and pointing resources towards actionable solutions.
Mhm.
So that's what I think living authentically is. It's just knowing yourself, knowing what you are uniquely suited to do, feeling like that in and of itself is a blessing set and is meant just for you in order to figure out, what your purpose is on this planet.
I love that. Such a beautiful answer. And, I just wanted to ask you too, what words of wisdom or advice do you have for someone who says, I haven't quite yet found my purpose. I don't really know what my skill set is. What words of advice do you have for someone to go about discovering that?
Yeah, I think whether it's your purpose, like something as big as that, or it's your next career move, I think we just have to listen to our own energy.
Okay.
We have these days now. No, a year of COVID, I think, has messed with everyone's emotional and mental energy and the cycle. This is a very odd way for humans to be interacting and living. But if you kind of think pre-COVID, um, on those days where you just felt like you were flying high at the end of the day, you're like, I kicked some tail today.
Yeah.
I just feel good about it. I feel like I was good at what I did. I accomplished things. I think really being honest with yourself about what did I do that day? What did I talk about? What was I, for me it's days when I'm speaking. I love being on a stage and connecting with people afterwards. I love connecting with people over coffee and brainstorming and having creative idea sessions. So I over the course of my career have just tried to listen to that. My own energy tells me when I feel like I was in my true space, an authentic space that day,
Mhm.
and and just really kind of again try to replicate those kinds of days and focus on more activities like that. And I think that same kind of listening to yourself can happen around your purpose. So there's so many documentaries out there. There's so in social media you can be tuned into so many different causes and issues in the world, and I think there's some of them just pull at our heartstrings or break our hearts
Yeah.
more disproportionately than others. I mean, I think any cause we feel like is a good cause, but there are some, you know what I mean? There's some that are just like it speaks to you and you want to do something about it. And so I think marrying those two things together is kind of how a person can find their purpose. Like, how do I execute against something that really resonates with me?
Yeah, and I would have to echo that. I mean, I've experienced that in my own life. Those days where you feel like you're just in the flow, right? Where you're doing things and you lose track of time because you're so absolutely immersed in what you're doing. I think that's a great indicator for really tapping into what sets our soul on fire. You said maybe even if maybe it isn't the discovery of a purpose, but it's just around the next career move or where do I need to be right now? And I think sometimes it can be overwhelming when we stress too much about finding our purpose and finding that lofty mission that we're really here to do. But I think it's important to just focus on this moment, right? What sets my soul on fire? What lights me up right now? And do more of that. So thanks for sharing that. So tell me a little bit about your journey to authenticity. Have you always lived in this authentic place where you're in your groove and kind of setting the world on fire in a number of different ways? Or have you kind of gone through a process of self-discovery and potentially, hardship, hard awakening catalyst, challenge along the way to get to where you are?
Well, thank you for that question. I think I've always felt like I wanted to do something good, but I don't think I've always known exactly what that would look like or how to execute it. So I think, from a very early age, I was raised in a very spiritual family. My background is Christianity by spiritual practice, and I was just kind of raised to think about giving back and being there for other people. But I
Okay.
remember as I was growing up, I was so attracted to like production and creativity and design and what
Mhm.
we would call kind of the advertising and marketing field. Like that stuff was so appealing to me. But yet I had this pull where I'm like, but I want to do something good. And I think that marketing and in the business world in general, but specifically kind of the advertising marketing side of things doesn't necessarily right away ring as altruistic. It doesn't, that isn't the first thing you think of when you say, how can I do good in the world? You think of the things we were talking about earlier, running a nonprofit or becoming a teacher or doing something in the civic space. And
Mhm.
so I was torn by that. How can I do good, but I really want to go do this. And I remember I just shared that conflict that I was having internally with a teacher at the end of high school when we were talking about what you're going to focus on in college.
Yeah.
And he said, I want to do something good, but I'm so attracted to, again, design and production and marketing.
Mhm.
How do I rectify those two things? And he said, well, Amanda, if people who want to do good in the world don't go into the business space, if they don't go into marketing, how will marketing ever get better? And for me, that was a key, just kind of paradigm shift in the way I thought about it, and is very much what I believe now, which is that we're all uniquely suited around either a different skill set, and we all need to be represented in different industries in order to truly move the world forward. Again, if
Mhm.
everybody who wants to do good only works at nonprofits, then it's just going to be that it can't be the only place. We need to have people in a variety of industries at a variety of levels, all trying to make the world a better place in order for real kind of seismic change to happen. And so I think over the course of my career, I've been honing in how I can use. I did then go into marketing after he helped me think about that
Um,
differently. And I think throughout my career, I wasn't always doing direct goodness in that role, but I was building some sort of skill set, which has then positioned me for some of the more senior roles I've had lately in my career, where I really do feel like I'm bringing that mission to life. And so it's all been in service of kind of this culmination of bringing goodness to the business world that I feel like I'm working on right now.
mhm.
So it has been a bit of a journey. It wasn't as if I had that aha moment and then right away I went into the business world and started making things better, but I was building skills that could get me to a level where I could affect and guide change.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so anxious to dive into this whole idea of branding. I find it to be particularly fascinating. I'm actually not a creative kind of by background, by training, by my academic training. I'm sort of a numbers geek. I studied math and statistics. So my first foray into this whole process of branding was when I started my business a couple of years ago. And it's just been fascinating to watch my business manager and his team kind of work their magic, taking me through the branding process and the logo development and really helping to encapsulate the energy that I wanted to embody and get that out in the world. So let's talk about that. Branding 101. Can we start super basic? And can you just give us a definition of what branding is and how you describe it?
Branding is the visual assets and experience you want people to think about when it comes to your company. So it's everything from the colors you use,
Mhm.
the font you use, the imagery, for sure your logo, and then the language. So we call it brand voice. How do you talk to your customers? But what is that? Just that set of language. Is it casual? Is it serious? The method by which you communicate is part of that. So it's kind of your visual brand as well as your brand voice. And then for me, I've made it a mission in my career to take it past just that basic kind of what a brand is on paper
Mhm.
and what is a brand actually doing in the world and out there. If you define your brand purpose, which is kind of a new fancy term for mission statement,
Okay.
um, how are you actually turning that into brand action? How are you actually going out into the world and doing something beyond just selling people things? So for me, I always think of branding as more than just those visual assets, but that is what branding is at its core. So
Okay. Thank you.
it's
Yeah,
how
I
you
just
show
want to
up in the world.
I love it. I love it. And I just love how, I mean, I just, again, on a daily basis, I see my designers and my team create these amazing images that just encapsulate the energy. And I find the process to be so amazing how they can take an idea and bring that energy out into the world. So let's talk about it from a kind of an energetic standpoint, the idea of, of casting a vibe in the world. How do you incorporate energy into your branding?
You have to really focus on why your company exists at all. So it
Okay.
has to be as heavy as if you ask yourself, like, what would the world be missing if I wasn't in business? What would be different? Yeah, what would the world be missing? And then once you're able to truly make it that important and heavy, then I think one can say, okay, now I know how to actually kind of bring what we should be doing out there to life and how it should be in what you are actually doing from a product and service perspective and kind of just the mission of the company. But
Mhm.
some companies aren't, the core product or service isn't necessarily altruistic or goodness based. So it's like, what else is your company doing around those things to make the lives of your customers better beyond just selling them those products and services? Every company serves a unique customer base where there are certain things that really really matter to them. If every brand was just trying to solve the world water crisis or domestic abuse or trying to combat homelessness or save dogs from shelters, like if every brand was focused on just the same piece of goodness, that it would be too much on one area. Every brand can kind of there are enough causes out there and there are enough nonprofits that every company could be supporting something different. So I think it's about just listening to the very nature and reason as to why your company exists, and
Mhm.
then figuring out how you deliberately direct energy towards bringing that to life for your customers.
Fascinating. So let's talk about if you can just think about all of the different campaigns that you've worked on over the course of your career. Let's talk about one that you found to be particularly exciting. I mean, I'm sure they all had elements of excitement and heightened creativity, all of that. But is there one that sticks out in your mind in terms of it's the excitement level that you brought into the world?
For sure. It's what I'm working on now, which is so I work at a company called Deluxe, and we are a 106-year-old company that started, we invented the personal checkbook. So our legacy is in the check printing space. But over the years, we have evolved alongside our customers, and now we offer small business marketing support. And we can help a small business with anything from their logo to their website to their branding. And I was brought into Deluxe as chief brand officer to help change those perceptions that we weren't just a check printer, that we were really focused on small businesses. And so I was very excited in this role to be able to figure out a way to do something good for small businesses instead of just doing an ad campaign that's, says, come buy your business cards with us, or we can
Mhm.
print your logo on your shirts. Instead, and that's what our competitors are doing. Instead, the idea was, how do we do something good for small businesses? As a brand, we will reach small businesses that way, and we will be in front of them, so we'll accomplish our business goals, but we can do something good for them on the way. So I gave a TEDx talk on this, I think it was a few years ago, and it was all around this concept of like, how can brands do well by doing good? And so for us, for Deluxe, doing well meant reaching more small businesses.
Okay.
Doing good meant driving business to small businesses. The number one thing small businesses need is support, someone to buy from them. So we started an original series where we highlight and celebrate and tell the stories of small businesses, and we do it so that people can see what it's like to be a small business owner, can be inspired by their stories, and hopefully to kind of create this movement to get people to understand the importance of supporting small businesses, as well as show small businesses how much we love them, highlight them, use our voice to elevate them. And so it's evolved over the years, and it's actually now it's a series on Hulu. We just launched season 5 in the fall, and we'll be launching season 6 in November of 2021.
Oh, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's such a brilliant idea. What are the different ways, the different modalities that you go about getting small businesses out there? I mean, I know you mentioned, the website, things like that. So what else do you do in order to help to market small businesses?
The number one thing we do to help small businesses is making sure that they're findable online. It's something
Okay.
that big businesses and small businesses should make sure that they're very mindful of, specifically in the year that we just experienced, where your digital footprint, your online presence was your storefront by and large.
Mhm.
But it is just so important to make sure people can find you online. Over 80% of the way people find any category is through search. We all do it. We
Wow.
all ask, whatever our favorite search engine is, questions, or that is how we're finding different brands, or the hours of a business, or where it's located. And
Mhm.
so making sure that you are designing your website, your social media, and everywhere you appear online, your directories and your listings, kind of those three categories, making sure that everywhere you're showing up, that you're really mindful of consistency against those platforms, that you're very conscious of what you're posting, that you are paying attention to those things, so
Mhm.
that you are optimizing or building those properties in a way that the search engines will return you higher in the ranking. And I
Okay.
could go into more detail, but that is the number one thing that we help small business with. We do it a lot on the show. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know if I mentioned the name of the show. It's called The Small Business Revolution, and again, it's on Hulu and Prime Video. But each episode is about an individual small business, and so we get to know the dog groomer, for example, or the restaurant and their family and the story, and then we help them with a marketing makeover. And so you hear a lot of these kinds of tips in the show, and then we help them with their finances and
Mhm.
operations, and we do a little before and after makeover, as you would expect. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out. Brilliant. What do you think? What's the future of branding? Where do you see branding in 10, 20 years from now?
I think it will always be about those visual assets that we were talking about earlier. Your logo, your typography, the colors, the marks, that for sure, that brand voice. But I think consumers there already are, but they are going to continue down this path of holding brands and companies accountable for their actions. Not just
Okay.
what they're saying, not just who they're donating to, but how they are actually showing up in the world. Everything from something like what we're doing, like how are you spending your marketing dollars? Are you actually helping your customers, or just talking at them?
Mhm.
um, Everything from the sustainability of a company, are you operating in a green way? Are you managing your employees and your suppliers in an equitable and fair manner? Are you making sure that diversity and inclusion is a priority? Anyway, I think that's going to be the future of branding. It's going to become, and it already is becoming, much more than just your logo and the colors and the design visually, and it's going to be much more about the space you occupy in the world.
Love that. So, what do you think is the most? I know there are many amazing aspects of what you do in your life, but what do you think is the most challenging thing for you as an executive, as just looking at your whole life personally and professionally, or the blend between the two? What is the most challenging thing for you?
The most challenging thing is, I think, trying to balance it all as a mother. So I think, especially
Okay.
during COVID, where everybody is in the same space. So I just experienced it this morning, where I have a lot going on today. I'm excited about all of it, but I'm just kind of in my head thinking all that through, right, and kind of walking
Mhm.
through the day. And I just went upstairs to fill my coffee mug, and then my husband's talking to me about something, my daughter's asking me something, and I felt like I wasn't there for them in the way you want to be there for your family, but at the same time, I'm in work mode, right? If I were in a physical office somewhere else, that wouldn't have even been something I would have had to emotionally navigate,
Right.
and physically wouldn't have been in the same space. So I think it's always been something I've struggled with. It's just kind of that balance of how you're showing up for your children. We just have one. We have a one and only, but how you're showing up, and um, yeah. So I could go into more detail, but I think that's the hardest part, is just kind of managing it all, showing up the way you want to in every aspect. And I think that's the great fallacy that we tell women they can have it all, and I think we can, but it's really hard to have it all on the same day or the same week or at the same time.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the concepts I like to talk about is, I don't like to use the word balance, work-life balance. I like to use harmony because I
Yeah.
view it more as like an orchestra, right? Work-life
Hmm.
harmony. We've at all times we have to keep all aspects of our life going, right? Work and personal lives and families and hobbies and all of that. And some weeks, there's more work to do, right? Some weeks, and I view it like again as an orchestra. So during an orchestra performance, obviously there are times when the woodwinds are louder, or the brass are louder, and
Hmm.
but at all times, all parts of the orchestra are going. So I've used that idea, that ideology, the kind of that mental imagery to help me navigate really challenging times because I'm a mom as well, and it can be very challenging to keep everything kind of in harmony and everything going. And it kind of helped give me myself the grace and kind of the compassion and the forgiveness and the latitude that I needed because I was being really hard on myself. And I think that's common for a lot of moms. So I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit more because I think this is, especially with working with my clients, this topic comes up all across the board when I work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, people at all levels, just struggling with, someone said to me yesterday, I'm killing it in my career. Finances are where I want them to be. I'm where I want to be status wise in the company, killing it professionally, but my personal life is in shambles. So I'd love to hear you speak about that a little bit. What are some of the things that you do in order to maintain harmony in terms of your daily routine, in terms of your mindset? Really anything. What are some tools that you have in your toolkit to help you achieve that harmony?
Uh, I think well, I could use your advice. I don't know that I'm always figuring it out. I do know that I'm in a better place when I make time for myself. When I make time for, but even that is like, gosh darn it, time for myself means a workout, which isn't necessarily like the thing I'm looking forward to all day, but it's very necessary for just my overall health. I can definitely feel like I'm in a better place throughout the day if I have gotten a workout, and I'm a morning workouter. I need to kind of get it out of the way for the day and rely on that energy for the rest of it. And so I definitely am in a better place when I make time for that piece of it. But I don't know. I just always feel like people are always saying like make time for yourself, and I'm just something that I just really struggle with. Like, but when, especially when we're all under the same roof and in close quarters, I think that part is hard. But it resonates with me when you say kind of give yourself grace, though. It's just so interesting as women, like we I feel like I read one article that talks all about giving ourselves grace, and if you need to have cookies and sit on the couch, do it. Don't feel guilty, or if you talk
Right.
to your children in a way you don't want to, that every mom does it. So give yourself grace. I definitely always hear that, and I think it's beautifully said. But then at the same time, then I'm reading all these articles that are like, mind your health, make sure you're drinking enough water and exercising and not overeating or over drinking. And I don't know, I feel like there's so many, and within one's own head, you're listening to both voices. So I don't know. I think I sometimes struggle with kind of the balance between the two things. Like the thing that I
Mhm.
know makes me better is the health piece, but at the same time, the grace piece resonates with me too. And so I'm trying to figure out how those two things exist at the same time.
Yeah, and I've kind of navigated that or wrestled with that concept a little bit as I've tried to find my sort of equilibrium because yes, the pendulum kind of swings back and forth. And you know what I've actually found for me a huge game changer was to ask myself what I need in every moment.
Mm.
So maybe I need something to fill me up, right? Maybe I need to focus on hydration or a workout or whatever, or maybe I need grace in that moment. Maybe I need to give myself some tough love and kind of a little pep talk and say, you know what, you're being too hard on yourself. Like this is in this moment, so I just focus on like what I need in this very moment. And sometimes I'm grabbing from, from one bucket and filling myself up in some way. And sometimes I'm grabbing from like the compassion, grace, forgiveness bucket in every moment. So I'm just sort of picking and choosing what I need in every moment. And that for me has helped me because I don't feel like it needs to be either or. It doesn't need to be black or white.
I like that a lot. Okay, I'm going to use that. I like that a lot because I think that's,
So,
for me, that's been the struggle just of this last year with COVID. Is like, I
yeah.
think every moment I'm trying to rationalize whether or not this year has been a blessing or terrible. And I think it's been both. I think the fact that there are silver linings. There are parts of it that have been fantastic. We're closer than ever as a family. I feel like I've had really quality time with my daughter in a way that I used to travel a lot for work, and I don't say that from a place of guilt, but it just realistically, just the quantity of time that I have with her now is just a really special thing. And so, yeah, anyway, so there's silver linings, and then there's parts of it that are just like, oh, I feel like I'm not doing some of the things that I'm best at. When we were talking earlier about what gives you energy, I'm not able to do any of those things on that list right now because I can't be physically on a stage. I can't physically be sitting down across from someone having a cup of coffee. So anyway, I think I put that in the same camp where you're right. Sometimes it's not black or white. It's not COVID's been great for everyone, or it hasn't been, or this not COVID, but obviously COVID's bad. I mean, 2020 and the
Right,
experience
the
that we've had.
situation. Yeah. Yeah, and I think realizing just getting to that place where, you can blend the two. They can coexist. Something can be wonderful and suck at the same time. It can have
Mhm.
elements of both, and that's okay. And I think that when we get to that place, then we experience more peace and ease. Like we don't feel that tug of war, that pull between two disparate realities. We feel like, okay, all of these emotions can coexist at the same time and I can be okay. And actually I can be better when I learn how to give space, how to hold space for all of them.
Mhm.
So it's been a journey for sure. Lots of growth in 2020, for sure. But speaking of growth, this actually just kind of prompted another question in my mind. So obviously, your clients come to you as the expert, this high-powered executives who's helping them bring their amazing ideas, their energy out into the world. But are there ever situations where you learn from your clients?
Absolutely, especially small businesses. I mean, I thought I was a small business supporter before I took this job and before I started producing and hosting a TV show focused on highlighting small businesses and helping them. But
Yeah.
what I've learned through all this is even harder than it looks like from afar. And that was my vision for this from the beginning was let's tell the stories of small businesses so people can see what it's like and can be inspired to recognize that when you're supporting a small business, you are supporting someone's dream. You're supporting someone putting braces on their kids' teeth. Growth to most small businesses looks like hiring someone else from within their very community. That when you have such power in that dollar when you spend it with a small business. But what I've learned from small businesses is that it's much harder than even you think it is. For those of us who work in corporate environments, we've got a team to rely on. We've got a network of an entire company. While we might find our job stressful, the very survival of the company isn't on one person's shoulders. But when you run a small business, it sure is. And so that's
Mhm.
what I've learned is just a great respect for how brave it is to run a small business, how tenacious you need to be. And so, and again, that's what I try to do through this series. Like the small business revolution is all about showing small businesses as the heroes that we believe they are, certainly in our country and to our economy, but in our communities and our neighborhoods.
I love how you've woven authenticity into that and just being real and kind of showing people how it is and calling it what it is, recognizing that it's not easy. I always say like to my followers and my community, I realize it probably looks glamorous to you guys from the outside looking in, right? Because you get to see all the shininess and all the exciting stuff and all the fun, the colors and the branding and everything. But it's hard behind the scenes. Like I'm very real about that because it is, it's hard being an entrepreneur. And I think the more real we are as leaders and the more vulnerable we are, and I think we're serving our communities and our companies and our clients better when we put ourselves out there and we're real and we can meet people where they are and identify with issues that people are struggling with on a daily basis. Um,
You could not be more right. I mean, sometimes I'll go down this rabbit hole on Instagram where I'll look at like just folks I follow, and it's like, man, they got it together, and man, they're just always looking good and doing the thing, and not just like my friends, but maybe people who are in the media and things like that. And I do think that they'd be well served to every once in a while, like just kind of tell the truth behind the scenes. Because I'm like, how are they? As someone who is in media and hosts a television show, I'm like, how are they producing so much like content all the time? And how are they? I know what that takes to do that. That's a full time
mhm,
job. And I'm like, how are they finding time for that? And I don't know. So I almost go to this place of a little bit of jealousy. And so I think there is something. I don't think people should dim their light to make sure that other people don't feel bad. But I do think that there is something really beautiful in gifting others with that peek behind the curtain to say, like, I exactly what you do. Like, I know it might look like this, but that is not what it's really always like. And so,
right.
yeah, I think that's wonderful that you do that.
Thank you. I try to. I'm trying to do that more. I mean, this is part of my journey. In the beginning, I felt like I needed to cast this perfect, flawless image to the world, right? Because I'm the professional. I'm the expert that people are coming to me for answers for. But I thought, you know what? That's not real. Like that's not real because I'm struggling with my own things right behind the scenes. Again, the work-life harmony, and I have my blocks and obstacles along the way. And I think we're serving our audience better if we're honest and raw and real and authentic and just put those out there and say, hey, look, I'm on my own journey too. And it's not always easy, but this is how I navigate it. I feel like we're serving people better. And I think when we meet them where they are and actually show them, not just tell them, but show them how we got from where we were to where we are now. So definitely making more strides. So definitely more open to doing like more, no makeup days than hair in a ponytail. Like this is life. This is life as a mom with a business. It's not always, not always camera ready. so so yeah, so before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, is there any other words of wisdom about anything, business, life, the balance between the two that you would like to share with our viewers and listeners?
Well, I think I would love for everyone to think about how they can affect goodness from exactly where they are now. Like, don't wait until you think you have the ideal job or role or title or that you're with the right organization to be able to do some sort of good. We need people advocating in meetings to make sure that there's equity and equality throughout our companies. We need people making sure that the way we run our finances is, um, uh, ethical. Like every role within every company really matters, and sometimes it's about making your customers lives better, sometimes it's about making the team around you at your company that you work at better, sometimes it's about just making your friends lives better. But if we all kind of pursue every day, like, how can I, in my unique situation, the job I have, the skills I have, the people I'm exposed to, how can I do something that is good for other people,
Mhm.
again, in the way they define good, not what you think would be good for them. Just think about how different the world could look if we're all kind of marching it's just an inch forward. It doesn't have to be the entire solution, but just a little bit of goodness every day. And I think the world's hungry for that right now, and I think we can all affect that.
Agree. That is so beautiful and so powerful. And as you were talking about that, the word that came to mind is service. I ask myself every day, I show up with the energy of service, which is very different than work, right? Very different than that obligatory kind of feel.
Mhm.
How can I show up and serve? How can I show up and serve as a mom? How can I show up and serve my clients? How can I show up and serve humanity? Right. And if we show up with that mentality of helping other people along in their journey, and like you said, taking part in doing good in the world will be a better place. And that's really beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for all of your wisdom that you've shared with us today. If people would like to get in contact with you directly, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'd love to connect with folks or have them follow me on Instagram. So I'm at Amanda K. Brinkman. The K is important in there. So Amanda K. Brinkman. That's also my handle on Facebook as well as Twitter. But Instagram's kind of my jam. Like that's where I do a lot of the dialoguing back and forth with folks. So would love to have people follow me there. And if they're interested in watching the show Small Business Revolution, the past 5 seasons are all on Hulu, Prime Video, or smallbusinessrevolution.org. You don't have to be a small business owner to learn something from it. It's certainly, it comes from a place of inspiration. So
Awesome. I can't wait to check it out. Thank you so much for being on my show today. And thank you to all of our viewers and listeners. As you well know by now, I believe that time is a choice. And I am grateful that you have carved time out to be here and listen to Amanda talk about all the amazing things she's doing in the world. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and have a great day.